Jonas Blue with Something Stupid. Well, it may have been something stupid that has gone on in relation to mining in New South Wales, with the Chinese company Shenhua being given a further $100 million in New South Wales taxpayer money, in addition to the $262 million previously paid to them. Now, this is $362 million given to a Chinese company now to say to them, you cannot mine on the Liverpool Plains in New South Wales. Joining me to discuss what this actually means is Ricky Lambert from Flow News 24. Ricky, eye-watering amount of money paid in compensation. Was it worthwhile for New South Wales to do this, and what is the background to this particular discussion?
Well, certainly the farmers in the Liverpool Plains that were opposed to the mine will say it's worthwhile even if it has come at a significant cost. But for the New South Wales taxpayer, and certainly for anyone who's looking to invest in Australia, it's a scary prospect that you could go this far down the journey in getting something approved and then the government goes, look, it's got a bit too hot, we're going to buy you out and get you out of this. $362 million is a lot of money.
And it goes directly to a Chinese company. But is that part of the reason why the New South Wales government's taken this decision? Is it a little bit similar to my previous article where the Belt and Road Initiative, where Victoria had signed up to a lot of construction and massive road building and so forth in Victoria, where Chinese companies were going to be given access to ports and so on to do that work? Is this another case of Australia indirectly pulling away from China having access to our resources?
Well, maybe so. Certainly that's the argument China's going to make in retaliation to this. They're going to be very angry about yet another decision, like the Huawei decision with the telecommunications, that they've been shut out of accessing other resources. But in the end, this is a significant farming area, and miners do usually get their own way when they're pushing into a farming area, as we talked about recently with a state MP. And what we're seeing now is state governments realising, perhaps in a fraught political situation in New South Wales, where you've got one nation and the shooters and fishers growing within regional New South Wales, I think the national part of the coalition government have realised they needed to listen to the farmers in this one.
You've got to remember that back when Greg Hunt was the minister and the environmental impact study come in at a Commonwealth level, the federal government actually approved this mine to go ahead, and it was with great consternation that occurred. I mean, Tony Abbott actually supported this mine when he was Prime Minister. Now we find that the same Liberals in his state counterparts have decided to not support the mine. What political implications could this have for the Nationals? Is it a decision they've taken in relation to the by-election that's coming up, or is it likely to have no impact and the other minor parties like Shooters and Fishers and One Nation will grow in stature in regional New South Wales?
Well, one does not simply write a $100 million cheque overnight. I think the process of getting to here just was a machine that was rolling, a locomotive that was rolling away, and suddenly the Upper Hunter by-election happened, and I think they didn't want this to come out before the Upper Hunter by-election because that's a coal mining area. I think they've been caught here, that it's had to come out that they're paying this compensation. This is going to damage their chances, the Liberals, and I think the Nationals in the Upper Hunter, which is a coal mining seat.
Okay, let's have a look at how this has implications, say, to Victoria and even South Australia. The South Australian situation, we've had a range of mines that have been discussed on the Eyre Peninsula. We look at the Iron Road mine, which is near Warramboo, which is just out of Woodner. That one has been extensively talked about. The York Peninsula, the seat of Narunga, where Fraser Ellis is the sitting MP. He has been a Liberal, but is now on the crossbench over travel allowance claims. We see that even Jeff Brock, an independent in the mid-north of South Australia, where his seat at Port Pirie largely relies on mining from Broken Hill and obviously the smelter in his electorate. Are we seeing a rise in the battle between the farmer and the miner over farmland? Is that going to increase? Are we going to see even more politics played in the next 12 months on this matter?
I think we will in South Australia, because there's this inquiry that's been started by Jeff Brock and supported by Fraser Ellis and Labor, interestingly, to get that off the ground. And Labor's supported that for political reasons, because it creates an awkward situation for the governing Liberal Party, because they are torn internally between their regional MPs who quietly will say, well, we don't support miners just having their own way in farmland. But the government policy is to allow more mining to happen in regional South Australia. So I spoke with Fraser Ellis recently. I'm also speaking with Jeff Brock soon as well. But this is what Fraser Ellis told me about the balance when it comes to mining and farming in SA.
There's a number of hoops that mining companies have to jump through and have to, legitimately pursue those efforts. But at the end of the day, if they can't reach an agreement with the landholder, they can whisk them off to the ERD court, the Environment, Resources and Development Court. And my understanding is that court and its predecessor, the Warden's Court, have found in favour of the miner just about 100% of the time. So as it currently stands, the farmer or the landowner doesn't have a great deal of leverage in negotiations.
Yes, that balance, is it one that's going to be fought over in this next electoral period, both in South Australia? Again, with the coal seam gas mining in Victoria, the moratorium was continued for Victorians to not have onshore coal seam gas. So that was an Andrews government decision. I think there's a lot of discussion about that from both a farming and a mining point of view. Ricky, we're going to get your views from the Flow News 24 desk, as this is an ongoing discussion, and we look forward to doing that here on the morning show.